led by Adolf Hitler. Over 7 decades, this important document has helped to profoundly change our world. The document establishes the equality and dignity of every human being. It also enjoins all countries that are members of the United Nations to ensure that their citizens enjoy their rights and their freedoms. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights also establishes that whatever the circumstances of our birth or station in life, our gender, our race, creed, or religion, we are all equal in human rights and in dignity. When the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration in 1948, it acknowledged the diversity of cultures and political systems. But in spite of these differentiations, the United Nations affirmed the Declaration as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and for all nations. Vice Chancellor, Registrar, ladies and gentlemen, we have assembled here this morning to affirm our belief in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and assess how we as a people have given practical meaning to the principles espoused by the Declaration. It is said that the political maturity of any nation or institution is judged by the way it treats its citizens. I know that we have an assemblage of competent scholars of human rights who will help us understand how Ghana stands in respect of human rights and how the citizens' rights to freedom of expression, movement, assembly, and others are ensured and expressed. I would like to express my appreciation to the Center for Conflict, Human Rights and Peace Studies for identifying and putting together these accomplished men and women from the field of human rights for this forum. I also like to thank the Vice Chancellor and his management team for supporting us with the venue for this forum and other logistics. I say a big thank you for accepting our invitation to speak at short notice. To all our participants, I say a equal. I hope that the deliberations that may take place here will further expand our knowledge of human rights and help us to appreciate the fact that when we talk about human rights, we are not limiting it essentially to how government treats their citizens, but also how one citizen treats a fellow citizen. This understanding will enable us to know that we all have a role to play in ensuring human rights. I wish you fruitful deliberations. May the good Lord bless us all. Thank you.
University to be associated with this very special day of the 70th International Human Rights Day. I suspect that this is the national celebration because I'm not aware of another university having gathered so many prominent people in this idea of human rights on a day like this. The University of Education, WINNEBA, has lived and has believed in human rights, and so we are very, very delighted to welcome and to listen attentively to the various people who have been invited. We are also very grateful to the many partners, internationally renowned partners, some of whom have their banners here, to associate with them in organizing this day. What I would like to say is that we are very pleased to be part of an important day like this. What I like to urge is that we do not end here. This should be the catalyst of a new revolution, of giving people what their due is. It should not depend on which political party they belong to. It shouldn't depend on how much money they have. It should not depend on how they look. It shouldn't depend on the color of their skin. It should be determined by the mere fact and the fundamental fact that they are human beings and so they deserve some rights. I hope that we are going to take notes and from here become ambassadors of fundamental human rights especially for those who are very vulnerable. Thank you very much, and I accept to be the chair for the occasion.
The international community marks the 70th anniversary of the proclamation of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This declaration, which all UN members or member states, including Ghana, have agreed to uphold, states that each and every one of us has the right to freedom of thought, expression of religion and belief, freedom of expression and freedom of peaceful assembly and association. These human rights are intrinsic part of our daily existence. They are the principles that keeping us alive. In the future, they will continue to be our purpose when we start to work together as one people with a common destiny. However, there's not a single day that passes on which we do not take human rights for granted. The reason is that for many people, human life can be sacrificed on the altar of their own whims and caprices. Moreover, the greatest indignity that a human being can suffer is the inability to provide food for their loved ones and secure a home for their children. The fact that there's a child out there who goes to bed without proper meal every night should put all of us to shame. The fact that there are people in our communities who continue to suffer death as a result of actions and omissions of others should spur all of us to work to change in these conditions. The unabated abuse of the vulnerable, children, women, and disabled in our streets and homes should also remind us of the struggle that still lies ahead. These social challenges constitute the character of a new enemy we have to face. It is the enemy that poses serious threat to our democracy. The enemy with the potential to undermine the gains we have made. The enemy with the strength to render the people's rights guaranteed by the Constitution meaningless if we do not move with requisite speed. It is this reason that the UN chose no other thing but the one that calls for every son and sundry to stand for human rights. But this cannot be achieved if various role players are not part of this mission. For this is a new enemy that requires different methods of engagement, or else we will be fighting an endless war in securing a peaceful world. All these challenges underscore the need to change mindsets and attitudes. They point to a pressing need to embark on a comprehensive education drive with passion and will about our rights and responsibilities. In a true constitutional democracy such as ours, the rights are intricately counterbalanced against the responsibilities. It is also our responsibility to act, behave in a manner that will show that we are proud beneficiaries of a democratic constitution. The constitution is not ambiguous about what responsibilities we have as individuals when exercising our rights. But many of our people choose the luxury of enjoying rights outside the set of responsibilities. It becomes worse when many of our civic institutions overplay issues of rights at the expense of responsibilities. We are at crossroads where it is necessary that we teach our people to learn and internalize the responsibilities that we have in our Constitution. That is why we are delighted with the progressive initiative by the Center for Conflict, Human Rights and Peace Studies of the University of Education, WINNEBA, which has introduced courses to equip students with the analytical skills that will enable them to address the theoretical and practical issues underlying the interface of human rights and conflicts. We believe that this initiative will bring about balance in our society, as there's evidence that some of us have been committing counterproductive acts which inadvertently compromise the objectives of human rights and developmental states. As we commemorate the 70th International Human Rights Day, we must demonstrate our commitment to the Constitution by speaking out on the issues of responsibilities as much as we do on rights. Failure to do so will only undermine the tireless efforts and selfless sacrifices made by many human rights activists and freedom fighters who fought until the last drop of their blood to make sure that you and I are free today. It is therefore our collective responsibility to jealously defend these rights and freedoms. In our endeavor to promote human rights, peace, and development, we, the Center for Conflict, Human Rights and Peace Studies, and Youth for Human Rights Africa, and the university community have resolved that this Human Rights Day should be observed by taking all services that our people require close to where they live. We therefore call upon all of you to stand not only for human rights, but also for your duties and responsibilities, and be bold to defend forever the cause of freedom and of rights. God bless Africa. God bless Ghana. God bless UW. Thank you very much.
Spans the globe, everywhere. It's not only in Africa, it's in Europe, it's in Asia, it's in all parts of the world, okay, with an endless supply of people to abuse them for financial gains. Trafficking has a broad global impact as well. What are the impacts? It weakens legitimate economies, it fuels violence, it threatens public health and safety, it shatters family because due to poverty, people sell out their children. I'll get to the statistics very soon, and it will interest you to know that most of the kids that are trafficked are sold out by their very parents and relatives. And trafficking shreds the social fabric that is necessary for progression. Okay, so these are the impacts. Article 3, paragraph A of the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress and Punish Trafficking in Persons defines trafficking in persons as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. It's a very long definition, right? Okay, so exploitation shall include at a minimum the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or even to the extent of removal of organs. Okay, so these are the reasons why humans are trafficked. Trafficking in persons is a serious crime and a grave violation of human rights. Every year, thousands of men, women, and children, most especially women and children here, fall into the hands of traffickers, either in their own countries or even abroad. And mind you, when we say human trafficking, we are not looking at women and children or humans being trafficked from here to outside Ghana. It is happening within Ghana. I'll get to that very soon. The United Nations Organization for Drugs and Crime, as the guardian of the United Nations Convention against Transnational Organized Crime and the protocols there to assist states in their efforts to implement the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons. So we are not on our own. The UN is in assistance to help curb human trafficking. Trafficking in person has three elements: the act of trafficking, the means by which the trafficking is done, and the purpose for which those persons are being trafficked. Okay. So the UNODC has three interdependent complementary components. I want to cut my presentation short. One, research and awareness raising, like we are doing here. We've done a lot of research. We are raising awareness through the media, through conferences like this, through workshops, and even in teaching in the university. Promotion of the protocols and capacity building. And three, the strengthening of partnerships and coordination. We need everybody to help us fight human trafficking, okay? Reasons for trafficking humans. Why are humans trafficked? Why are women trafficked? Why are women trafficked? Why are children trafficked? The guise of being provided with a new job in another country. Some of the people who are trafficked are aware, and they are told that, oh, let's take you to Dubai or to China and give you a teaching job. They are sent there and they are actually forced to prostitute, to enrich those who bought them, rather than they themselves. Then another thing is to meet the debts of their family. As I told you, some families sell off their children because they owe another family debt. So I owe you 10,000 Ghana cedis. I can't pay. I have my daughter. Let me sell her to you. So it's like a barter. Instead of paying you back your money, I pay you back with my son or my daughter or my grandchild. Then earning income. They sell off those children to earn income. Apart from paying debts, they also do that to earn income. Then they are also sold off to be laborers in factories, in fields, in restaurants, in hotels, bars, and some of them are also forced into sexual exploitation or prostitution. Also money laundering. Instead of doing the direct bank-to-bank transfer, they intentionally sell off the humans and take the money. It's also another form of money laundering. Then drug trafficking. They make these people they are trafficking swallow the drugs. So it will be like they are selling human beings, but they actually have drugs embedded in them or hidden somewhere around them. So it's also another form of drug trafficking. Then document forgery, human smuggling, rape and torture. These are all reasons why people are trafficked. And also sometimes a family wants to increase its standard of living. Now let's come to the main issue, child trafficking. The 6th Ghana Living Standard Survey estimates that there are more than 8.6 million children between the age of 5 to 17 in Ghana. More than 8.6 million children between the ages of 5 to 17 in Ghana. And these are the age ranges of children that are usually trafficked. Sadly, over 1.8 million of them are engaged in child labor. And over 1.2 million are engaged in hazardous child labor. When we say hazardous, we are looking at the situation whereby the child is engaged in a form of labor that is jeopardizing to the child's life. Like galamsey, fishing. These children can get drowned. So that is hazardous child labor. Then child trafficking is an offense, as I said earlier on. We have the Ghana Police Service, we have the International Justice Mission, we have International Organization for Migration, and various NGOs that are helping to curb child trafficking. Madam Patience Kwe is from Ghana Police Service. She's a Commissioner of Police, and she's been involved in this research. After my presentation, she will give you a brief. Women and girls from China, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and Burkina Faso are subjected to forced prostitution. So as I told you earlier on, it doesn't happen only in Ghana. Even in China, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, all our neighboring countries, all over the world, women and children especially are being trafficked. In 2016, the American government gave a warning to governments of Ghana that if steps are not taken to address this issue of child trafficking, Ghana risks losing a lot of aid from the American people. So you see, we are on the radar. Some of the kids are involved in stone quarries. Some are involved in fishing, galamsey. Some are even sent to rubbish dump sites to collect scraps. Can you imagine? Very risky. Now let's look at some statistics. In 2013, International Justice Mission did a research in our fishing industry to look at trafficked children. And they counted 444 children trafficked along the Volta Lake alone. Volta Lake alone, 444 children. This is not encouraging at all. And mind you, these children that are trafficked are not sent to school. Most of them are not in school. And we are talking of ages between 5 and 17. Now let's look at the source communities, those who sell their children out and those who receive them. So we have the source communities and the destination communities. The source communities are Atta, Ningo, and WINNEBA. Atta, Ningo, and WINNEBA. In Atta, 40 to 100% of children between 5 to 17 are trafficked. In Atta, they don't want their children there. In Ningo, between 20 to 60% of children are trafficked or sold out. In WINNEBA, right here, 30 to 80% of children in WINNEBA are also trafficked. Now let's look at the fostering destination communities. Those who receive them mostly are in Akosombo, Pando, and Peve. And we have families that have actually opened up to receive trafficked children. In Akosombo, 60 to 70% of homes are ready to receive trafficked children. In Pando, 15 to 100% of homes are ready to receive trafficked children. In Peve, they don't want trouble. 20 to 30% of homes are ready to receive trafficked children. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a big issue at hand. Now, we also went further apart from what International Justice Mission had done. Some of the kids were rescued. So we went back early this year to conduct a survey, to mop up. We conducted our research in a small portion in Germany, Sedom, and Abume. And so far, we realized that most of the kids there were living with either relatives or their parents. So in these areas, the number of trafficked children has either drastically reduced or we no longer have trafficked children there. And it's difficult to conduct such research because their foster parents threaten them. If you let information out that you were trafficked, I'm your foster parent, I'm not your real mother or grandmother, I'll kill you. So some of the kids declined talking to us. We had to, coax them that we are not going to report them and all that. Before, just 30 of them even agreed to talk to us. And these are the ones living with their actual parents or relatives. So you can imagine those not living with their parents would decline in talking to us because of the threats they undergo. And these are the activities they carry out, especially when it comes to the fishing activity. Some of them are sent to go fishing alone, kids between 5 to 17. You see the unfortunately I can't project. You would have seen toddlers on boats carrying nets, going to fish on their own, 5 to 7 years. And the people who bought them don't care whether they drown or not. And even when they go with the adults to fish, and the nets get stuck in the stumps, tree stumps at the bottom, it is the kids who are sent to dive and retrieve the nets or the traps. So it's a very dangerous thing for them. And the working hours spans the whole day. It depends on the type of fishing, it depends on the role of the individual child in the industry, the availability of the fish depending on the season, the drive of the master. Some of them send the kids out there on the water 24/7. You go and fish, you land, they collect the fish, and the next minute you are supposed to go again. Some of them are even deprived of food, water, and they don't look healthy. They look so malnourished. And as I told you, most of them are not in school. The few who are in school are those living with their actual parents. We spoke to a few female survivors, and they told us what they went through. Some of them were abused sexually by their foster parents. Others Others were sent out there to prostitute in the night. During the day, they'll go fishing. In the night, you are supposed to prostitute to enrich the pockets of your foster parents. And these were the conditions under which we found some of them. Some of them had injuries all over their bodies, especially their feet and even on their hands. They looked malnourished. Most of them hadn't been to school before. Only a few of them said they had been to school before. We are talking of children between 5 to 17. And if a 5-year-old tells you I've been to school before, how much of school has the 5-year-old had? It's unfortunate. Some of them end up drowning. They told us of some of their friends who had drowned earlier on, and for that matter, they couldn't see them again. Others are exposed to bilharzia, fever, lethargy, severe skin lesions, and severe skin complications. So these are some of the issues I want to share with you. But fortunately, some of them were rescued when International Justice Mission came around. Ghana Police Service and the Department of Social Welfare also helped in rescuing the children. At this juncture, I think I would like to pause for COP patients to also give us a brief. Later. Okay, so thank you very much. We all have a role to play in helping to curb child trafficking and child labor.
Contestations over the ownership and management of such social facilities as toilets, toll booths, market space and stalls, and in some instances, these infractions have resulted in fatalities and distracted the smooth flow of the socio-political lives of the people. These acts of violence are perpetrated, in most cases, by politically motivated vigilante groups who ride on the winner-takes-all political system practiced by the country. What is surprising is that as soon as a party loses an election, it loses its theoretical and physical power, and the party that has won quickly assumes some deadly contagion of energy throughout the country. The grassroots mobilize themselves into a huge force of politically motivated vigilante groups whose stock in trade is to seize social facilities and organize reprisal attacks on members of the opposition party with impunity. They do, as Thucydides, the father of realism, will put it, the powerful do what they may, and the weak suffer what they must. Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, these groups fail to take over the potholes on our roads, the filth that is swallowing our cities, the polluted water bodies in the country, and the schools that run under trees in the 21st century Ghana. Also, the country grapples with protracted ethnic conflicts and chieftaincy disputes, particularly in some parts of northern Ghana, which continue to wreak deaths and destruction of property, setting back the clock of the country's development. All these have implications for our human rights. The operators of illegal mining, Galamsey, continue to defy the hue and cry by concerned Ghanaians over their security-threatening activities. Consequently, Galamsey has taken center stage as a destructive agent with a big toll on the country's water bodies, farmlands, and settlements. We are entitled to drink clean water, potable water, have fertile lands, and live in places with peace. These are threatened by Galamseyers. Wherein lies our human rights? Alongside these threats are rampant fuel station outbreaks and traditional emergencies, especially periodic floods in parts of the country, especially Accra. Every May, Accra is in trouble. Part of the city is swallowed, and Accra, part of Accra looks like a city on the sea in May. With this gloomy picture, Ghana's image as a peaceful country is seriously dented and can technically be described as one that is experiencing fragile or negative peace. Prof. Chair, the Amnesty International, I told you. Thank you, madam. The Amnesty International report for 2017 indicates that people with mental problems suffer involuntary admission and detention, chaining, forced seclusion, lack of shelter, denial of food, electroconvulsive therapy, stigma and its consequences, among many others. Domestic violence has taken a big space in our national conversation, yet there seems to be no effective solution to this social menace. Police brutalities of innocent citizens are reported daily, and it seems there is no antidote yet. And when you come to, Madam talked about child labor, so I don't want to belabor it, but I'm a living testimony of child labor. I lived with, my parents were very poor. I lived with some people while in elementary school. Sometimes I pounded fufu for 6 people. When I finished, they told me the fufu was finished. So they would give me money for gari. I would buy gari, and the soup that would accompany the gari is a baptized soup. Baptized soup. Soup finished, they poured water into it and put it on fire, and they give it to me. Tasteless. Here I am today. Some of their children now come to me for money. Those of you who have parents living with house helps, be careful the way you treat them. As young people growing up, you don't know what will happen to you and your parents in future. If you go to any place and you are served and you find the soup very palatable, it's from a house help. Many of the wealthy people do not even ask their children to cook. They marry and they send their husbands to restaurants. Their marriages are always on the brink of collapse. Be careful how you treat other people. Human rights are not for the privileged. They are for everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, because I've been asked to end, I would want to end, but all that I've said provides space for the security threats that have implications for human rights violations. Clearly, Ghana requires a strategic security repositioning, which is key to the sustenance of the country's image as an oasis of peace in a turbulent West African region. Within this context, it is apt to interrogate the role the various agencies have played in the past and aspects they need to jettison or revisit and the way forward. I want to provide some solutions, though, suggested solutions. I think we must begin teaching human rights in our homes. I always tell my students that there are students who come from homes and those who come from houses. They are 2 different things. There are people who have not been trained, who have not been properly nurtured. They come from houses. Those who have been trained come from homes, and they start speaking to you with please, say. Some of those others would only say, what's he saying? You are from a house, not a home. So we must begin. And unfortunately for us in Africa and Ghana for that matter, you do not hear about conflict, you do not hear about peace, human rights, and those things until you get to the university. I propose, therefore, that we begin human rights education right from the house or the home, then to the school, even at creche. A child beats the other. You tell the other person, the child, that that's a human right violation. You start from there. And if we do that, we can then expand and go to our communities and educate the people. Prof. Chair, thank you very much for the time given me, and God bless you.
Rights. We hope that with time, each person's rights will be respected, especially our students, parents, workers, etc., for peaceful coexistence. We look forward to working with you for many years to come. On behalf of the Efuti Municipal Education Directorate, I wish you happy 70th International Human Rights Day celebration. Thank you all for your attention.
Because if you take the Sustainable Development Goals and several other international protocols that we have, they are talking about issues that are related to youth development and children's rights in that order. And so it is an honor for us to be part of this celebration. Now, for me as a youth leader, and for that matter to speak to my colleagues, young people in this room, it is important that we highlight some critical human rights issues that are affecting young people. When Dr. Kingsley was speaking, he was talking about peace and conflict. And so clearly we are getting into an area in which if we don't take care, we will be driving our young people to fuel violence and conflict in our country. And that is why it is very critical for us to address issues that are affecting young people. What I'm trying to draw your attention to is that if you take the African Union, for instance, it has what we call the African Youth Charter. Now, this African Youth Charter highlights or defines who a young person is in Ghana or in Africa, and what their roles, what their responsibilities are, what their rights are as well. And if you allow me, I would like to draw some lessons from Article 11 of the African Youth Charter, briefly. If you take the Article 11, B, it says that the African Union, and for that matter, the member state, shall facilitate the creation and strengthening of platforms for youth participation in decision-making at local, national, regional, and continental level. And if you continue to read the Article 12, it also talks about or enjoins the member states to develop youth policies that will ensure that young people in the member states of the African Union can achieve their highest potential in life. Now, for us, if we look at what is currently happening, you realize that the right to participation of young people are clearly undermined in many aspects of life. If you take the political right, for instance, we often talk about young people when it comes to election, and when we can line up young people to go and vote in an election. And right after that, their concerns, their views, and their aspirations are ignored throughout the governance process of the country. What is happening these days is that the only space that young people have to express themselves is through social media. And even with that, we are getting to an area where the social media is being abused on a daily basis. Because young people do not have the space to champion their voices, they don't have the space to voice out their aspirations and to participate in the development of their country. And so we realize that young people are involved in all sorts of violences. And for us at Youth Advocate Ghana, we want to make a case, particularly on this day as we celebrate the International Human Rights Day, that the voices, the aspirations of young people should be considered, should be factored in every aspect of our development processes. For example, if we take the National Youth Policy, as we speak now, the National Youth Policy is being reviewed. How many of you here are aware of that, especially the young people in the room here? If you are aware of the review of the National Youth Policy, can we see by hand? So you can see that in the seat here, none of them is aware that the National Youth Policy is being reviewed. But this is a policy that is going to address issues and concerns of young people. So if they are not aware, then who are providing input into this policy? So this is something very critical that we must address as human rights advocates, as human rights defenders. We must ensure that we give the youth of this country opportunity to contribute to our national development. If we miss out to do this, then we are going to bear the cost forever, because the expertise, the ideas, the knowledge, and the exuberance of these young people will never be utilized. And so on this day, I want to encourage all of us, especially for you as a young person sitting right there, listening to me. We need to stand up for our rights, and that is the theme for this celebration. We must stand up for our rights, and we must know our right in order to claim them. If we don't know it, there is no way we can claim our right. And I urge all of us to read widely. So this is the charter that defines your role, your responsibilities. You go online, you can get this document, read thoroughly, and get knowledge, understanding of what the right is saying, or what your rights are, and how you can claim them. You also need to contribute to the development of your country by making sure as students you study hard, and you pass your examination, and you come out to be very useful citizens for Mother Ghana. I thank you all.
The use of national, regional, and the United Nations human rights instruments. How do we seek to achieve this? Our vision is simple: to lead human rights promotion and advocacy across the continent of Africa through one, education and training. We go to schools, we set up human rights chapters, as we have done in University of Education, WINNEBA, and other institutions, to be champions of human rights in these institutions. We also do what we call research and publication, where we take topical issues affecting our nation, affecting humans, research into them. Recently, we conducted a research in our prisons and issues of human rights that confront our prisons. And you'll be shocked at the outcome, where there is blatant abuse of prisoners who themselves do not even know those rights they have as prisoners and cannot demand those rights. We also do what we call advocacy and litigation. We advocate for the rights of those who are vulnerable or in the lower class, and we litigate on their behalf. One of such cases we took up and litigated and succeeded was a case of Stephen Atta. Stephen Atta, at a very young age of 21, was recklessly violated by a police officer on duty. Stephen was shot and rendered 100% paralyzed. Stephen was very young, or is very young, and Stephen, until this year, had been in the hospital for 7 good years. The treatment, the care was just not there. Nobody cared until we took up the case and pushed. And it is refreshing to note that the government listened and Stephen was well compensated. Now Stephen lives in a home and is being well taken care of. For such victims also who cannot go to court, we go to court on their behalf. Reason you may be hearing much about lawyer Francis Xavier Sosu, who is also the president of URA, to litigate on behalf of such vulnerables. We also do conferencing, like we have here, both local and international, to push the agenda of human rights. Human rights is basic. Human rights needs to be repeated and sounded in the minds of us who are deserving of it, people who should protect it, and those who should prosecute others who violate these rights. So it is the aim and aspiration of URA to keep pushing human rights, the agenda of promotion, in every institution, in every quarter of life that we find ourselves. Those of you in primary schools, that's if any of you are here, those of you in senior high schools, human rights is not disrespect. Human rights is not disrespect. Like the other speaker said, it comes with responsibilities, but it is not disrespect. Demanding human rights does not mean you are not, or you are disrespectful. It only means that you are promoting a system that can absorb all of us, a system that is conducive for human life. That's what it means when you demand your rights. Professor Chairman, URA seeks to make human rights Africa's priority by partnering institutions like yours and pushing the agenda of advocacy and research. I am very happy that today we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of human rights as champions of human rights, and I hope that even as we live here, more of you will want to become ambassadors of this movement. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Consider attempting to save a suspected thief who is being lynched in a busy area such as Mokola or in a village. And you are trying to save that person. You are standing up for human rights. But would that be a popular position? We all remember what happened to Major Mahama, the military officer who was lynched in Denchebuasi. Recently, there was a news item on BBC where a mother saw his son being lynched in a live Facebook video. The mother was in US. His son had gone back to home in India, and the guy was suspected of being a child kidnapper, which was not true. But because of mob action, the people just got up, they beat the guy up, they bent him, and the worst of it all, they were streaming it live on Facebook. And imagine a mother seeing his son being lynched on Facebook. He can't shout for the people to hear, but he can see what is happening. This is how painful it is when it happens to you. But when it happens to someone, and we are all suspecting that the guy is a thief, he's a this, he's that, let's beat him. Sometimes we just follow the fray, and it happens. Consider choosing between exposing your friend who has raped a poor girl and keeping your friendship. If you would have to go and stand in court to testify against your friend who has raped someone, would you be able to do that? Would you be able to stand up for human rights? Consider reporting your wife or your husband who has been mistreating the stepchild in your home and beating that child mercilessly. Consider having to make the decision to report that wife or husband to the police. Many of us here, or having to report your own mother or father for abusing somebody's rights. Many of us here will find it very difficult to do that. And the reality is that standing up for human rights is not a popular position. Ladies and gentlemen, consider the subject matter of the freedom of the LGBTs in Ghana. It is still a very unpopular position. And I don't think many of us here can boldly say, oh, because of human rights, let's give them their rights. These are very dicey situations that present difficult dilemmas. Standing up for human rights or keeping quiet to save embarrassment and the loss of relationship. What do you choose? I have personally come to the conclusion that human rights are embedded in our culture, and they are challenged by long-standing and often unrealistic cultural practices. And so, based on our cultural perceptions, we abuse the rights of the minorities, we abuse the rights of the voiceless, we abuse the rights of the disabled, we abuse the rights of many, based on our own cultural situations. And because of that, human rights is an unpopular position. Because of the element of culture, you would realize that different types of rights are in danger in different countries in Africa today. Today in Ghana, we are fighting for the right to information. It's a right we are fighting for in Ghana. The people of Rwanda, upon all their advancement in development, we've been comparing them to Ghana, and we've been saying, oh, Rwanda has gone far than us. But today in Ghana, today in Rwanda, Ghana, we have freedom of speech, but they don't have freedom of speech in Rwanda. They are fighting for freedom of speech. Libya, we know that in 2011, they were fighting for self-government. And today, we know the repercussions. In Tanzania and Uganda, if you are an albino, you are under constant threat of being killed on a daily basis, because many of the cultures over there don't think that albinos deserve to live, and they kill them for ritual reasons. As I continue and as I am ending, let me quote Eleanor Roosevelt, who was the longest-standing First Lady of the US. She said, "Where, after all, do human rights begin? In small places, close to the home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map in the world. Unless these rights have meaning there, in the home, in our dormitories, in our classrooms, in the places where we live, they will not have any meaning in any part of the world." I'm here to give a solidarity message because Africa Liberal Youth decided to be part of this program. So let me just say something briefly about Africa Liberal Youth and take my seat. We from the Africa Liberal Youth are enthused to be part of today's human rights celebration. I must say that much progress has been made in Africa in terms of upholding human rights. But I should be quick to add that much more needs to be done in the areas of freedom of speech, education, right to decent jobs, right to movement, right to protest peacefully. Our governments, not only in Ghana but in the whole of Africa, are quick to sign human rights charters, but very slow to effectively implement their consequences. We in Africa Liberal Youth have identified one of the major challenges facing Africa youth, and that is migration. And because of that, in the coming year 2019, we are embarking on a migration project. We are holding seminars and forums to educate young people in Africa on migration, because our rights to migrate are seriously impaired. On the one side, many young people here, including those of us in this room, believe that the moment we cross and get to Europe, all our problems will be over. But the reality is that many of those who attempt to go there die in the desert. Some of them get sold as slaves. The doctor here spoke about trafficking. They get sold as slaves. Some of them die while trying to cross the Mediterranean. And when they arrive in Europe, they sleep on the streets, they sleep in slums, they do dirty job, and when they are caught, they are sent back home under inhumane conditions. On the other side, there is the intra-Africa migration, which we are all not pursuing, partly because there are artificial boundaries in Africa, which we are all pushing for them to be removed. We want to hold seminars that will educate the youth about the right to migrate legally and not through the illegal means and dying on the desert and going to Europe and being sent back home. And so if you want to be part of this migration project, you can contact us by getting to like our Facebook page, the Africa Liberal Youth, and following us. And when we roll them out, we hope that you will all be part of it, and we shall all stay here and help to build Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Niyama. So those going on Facebook tonight, I think it's not going to be all about browsing. You go and then like his page and then be a part of the movement. Okay, without much ado, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our media partners who just came in. We have Pink FM, we have Adum TV, Accra FM, we have UTV, and we have Radio Gold. Please let.
While the idea of human rights has been around for a long time, it did not find universal expression until the establishment of the United Nations at the end of the Second World War. The Charter of the United Nations affirmed one of the core purposes of the organization to be, and I quote, promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms for all with distinction as to race, sex, language, and religion. One will ask why the rights of women and girls needs attention. Human rights are women's rights, and women's rights are human rights. As long as the discrimination and inequality remain so commonplace around the world, as long as girls and women are valued less, fed last, underpaid, and subjected to violence in and out of their homes, the potential of human family to create a peaceful, prosperous world will not be realized. Winning rights for women is about more than giving opportunities to the individual girls or women. It is about changing how the state, institutions, and community works, involving changing laws and policies, winning hearts and minds, and investing into strong women organizations and movements like Rama Visions. Rama Visions exists to support tireless and courageous efforts of women who work every day to win rights for women and girls in their women movement. These groups are working to ensure women can own properties, run office, get paid fair wages, and live freely from violence, including domestic violence, sexual assault, and harmful practices like female genital mutilation. The UN Millennium Development Goal sets specific targets to reduce poverty, including targets for gender equality, work and representations. The new Sustainable Development Goals, that's the SDGs, hold real promise to embed advances in human rights and include a specific goal, goal number 5, gender equality. Only when women and girls have full access to their rights, from equal pay of land ownership rights to sexual rights, from freedom of violence, access to education, and maternal health rights will true equality exist. Only when women have taken leadership and peacemaking role and have an equal political voice will economies and countries be transformed. And only when women and girls have a self-determination they are entitled to. Me standing here is an empirical evidence of what I'm talking about. When I contested the then GFA president, Mr. Kwesi Nyantakyi, in 2015, I was trampled upon. I was disrespected, humiliated, subjected to nothing. They used harsh words that I cannot even say with my mouth. I felt I wasn't human. I felt I didn't belong to this world. And these are people I looked up to. I thought would understand human rights. But these people did not respect who I am because they thought I was a woman. These people paid television stations and radio stations to torment me and humiliate my life, all because I was a woman. Rama Visions was born. Rama Vision is here to revive women, courts, and grassroots football. Rama Vision supports intelligent women who strive or who force to go up there. Rama Visions help women and needy girls who wants to aim high in education. It is an urge. Truth be told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Even our VC has felt it. Every champion, every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit. But they did not throw in the towel either. And I will never throw in the towel. Not because I am a woman. If you are a woman or a girl in this auditorium, please raise up your right hand and say this after me. Our mothers here, please lift up your right hands and say this after me. Human rights are women's rights. And women's rights are human rights. Please put your hands down. Thank you. Now it is up to all of us to hold government, institutions, and individuals accountable for their commitments and make sure our goals as women or girls are met, involving women and funding the solutions of grassroots women's group. As Dr. Kweji Agri said, if you educate a man, you educate one person. But if you educate a woman, you educate the whole nation. The Bible-believing persons here can testify that they said behind every successful man is a woman. Thank you.
Thank God for the privilege to be here and thank the organizer for such an honor to share a thought. Being a young person myself, I spent the last 12 years of my life in international human rights work, starting as an advocate to the level where I serve as a regional director for Africa. I have two things to share. One, if you're going to have the kind of human rights that we are aiming for, then we should drive active youth participation. The young people of Africa, for me, are not strong enough. Africa rests on the shoulders of the youth. Ghana rests on the shoulder of the youth. The youth should be able to rise up and actively engage in the development process. How do you do that? Find out from your community, find out from your district. When does the district assembly organize their district hearing? When do they do their medium-term development planning? How can we represent the interests of our community in the district level development planning that forms part of the national development planning process? Because at the end of every 3 years, every district in Ghana develop a medium-term development plan. Based on that plan, then they do a budget. And there's this document that, provide the framework for the district to do development. And so what is not in the plan will not get done. But usually, these plans are done in the offices of planning officers. I can see this on authority and it can be quoted anywhere. And they don't go back to the community to represent the interests of the people. And the youth are there. Massive unemployment. Youth are used as tools and manipulated for some people's parochial interest. We are far better than that. Let the youth of Africa rise and be part of the development process. And I believe if we do, the Africa we want, the Agenda 2060, is possible. But remember, this African that we want rests on the shoulders of the youth. Let's rise as young people and be part of the development process. Thank you.
So if by God's grace, I can stand here today, I am only a story in God's story. And it is my prayer that you will also be a story in God's story. Vice Chancellor, fellow speakers, respectable ladies and gentlemen, all protocol duly observed, I am overjoyed to be part of today's 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And I am here today to challenge each and every one of us to rise up boldly, to stand for rights, speak for rights, and fight for rights when necessary. But we will do that peacefully, as we have been advised. This is a noble call to action. You must stand up to be counted. Let us unite to uphold our nation and redefine the future of Ghana, where justice for all and injustice to none, respect of fundamental rights of all persons without discrimination, and equal treatment of all regardless of our economic and political status becomes the hallmark of Ghana. And that we can do that. We have the power to make that happen. It is often said that if you don't stand for anything, you would fall for, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Put in other words, you could say those who stand for nothing fall for anything. When it comes to standing up for fundamental rights of all persons, there cannot be an exception to the rule. Ladies and gentlemen, historically, Second World War and its devastating effect was what led to the establishment of the UN. You will recall that Adolf Hitler ascended power through 1920s and 1930s in the wake of Germany's devastating defeat in the World War I. In 1933, he became a dictator of the Nazi Germany. Hitler and his Nazis were racists who believed that German race was superior to all others, particularly to the Jewish race. In an attempt to wipe out the Jewish race, Hitler sparked the Second World War that was described by various authors as the most horrible conflict that ever afflicted the world. World War II happened between 1939 and 1945 and resulted in the death of some 60 to 80 million people and destroyed many cities in Europe and in Asia. Millions of people were rendered homeless and were starving. When Second World War ended, world leaders realized that they needed to come together to set up a standard to regulate the human race. And that standard that they set together became the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted in 1948. Today is the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. The declaration was adopted by the UN on 10th December 1948. And that is why we celebrate the International Human Rights Day on every 10th December across the world. The United Nations set out a new commission under the chairmanship of Eleanor Roosevelt, a human rights activist and a US delegate to the UN, which drafted the policy document that became known as the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. It is very, very important for us to note that in the preamble of the Universal Declaration on Human Rights and Article 1, it was stated as follows, and I quote, "Disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind, and the advent of the world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of all common people. All human beings are equal and free, and equal in dignity and in rights." The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by Resolution 217 of the UN. The declaration became the landmark demonstration of the international commitment's vow never again to allow the kind of atrocities that hit the world during the World War II happen again. The world leaders took a stand. Are you willing to take a stand today? It is very important when it comes to human rights. You need to take a stand. You cannot stand aloof. You must stand for something. Because the world leaders were willing to take a stand, many legislation were put in place to regulate the international human rights space. The first one was the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. We have the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. We have the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. We have the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. Convention on the Rights of the Child and Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability. In consequence, many provisions in the UN Charter and other related international rights, human rights instruments are contained in constitutional laws of all democratic nations, including the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. So then, ladies and gentlemen, what then are rights? When we talk about human rights, what are these rights? Whilst adopting the Universal Declaration on the 10th December 1948, a member of the drafting subcommittee by name Herman Santa Cruz of Chile made a statement that exemplifies human rights and the values that we must place on human rights. And he wrote, and I quote, "I perceived clearly that I was participating in a truly significant historic event in which the consensus had been reached as to the supreme value of the human person, a value that did not originate in a decision of a worldly power, but in the fact of existence, which gave rise to the inalienable right to live free from want and oppression and to fully develop one's personality." The above statement clearly puts into context the definition of human right and what value we must place on human right. Having a right is not a political decision. Having a right is not a religious decision. Whether or not a Ghanaian has a right is not determined by NDC or MPP. Whether or not a Ghanaian has a right is not determined by any of the political actors that we see today. It is only determined by the fact of our existence. The fact that you are a human being means you have rights, and that is it. It doesn't matter. You may be born to poor parents, like I was born to poor parents and became a street child, even though I was on the street, but I had rights. You may be the child of the most powerful politician in town. You have rights. Regardless of your background, we all have equal rights. Now, ladies and gentlemen, according to the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights of the UN, he said, human rights are inherent to human beings, whatever our nationality, place of residence, sex, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, language, or any other status. We are all equally entitled to our human rights without discrimination. These rights are interrelated, interdependent, and indivisible. The universal human rights are expressed and guaranteed by laws in the form of treaties, customary international law, general principles, and other sources of international law. When you come to Africa, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights is our own response to the international community. It was Africa's demonstration that we were willing to go the way of human rights. And the African Charter was adopted on June 27, 1981 and entered into force on October 21, 1986. Ghana, where do we lie in the midst of all this? Ghana has been a signatory to almost all the well-known international treaties on human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, when we begin from the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, Convention on against torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment, Convention on the Rights of a Child, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and so on and so forth. Ghana ratified the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on January 24, 1989. By becoming a signatory to the above instrument, Ghana has placed itself in a position to respect the values of common humanity and the fundamental rights of all citizens as enshrined in those instruments. It is noteworthy that most of the provisions in the international covenants and instruments can be seen in Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 of the 1992 Constitution. Already, Dr. Kingsley referred us to Article 12.1 of the 1992 Constitution, and I want to lay emphasis somewhere. It says that the fundamental rights and freedoms enshrined in this chapter shall, in law school, when we talk about shall, the purposive meaning of shall means that it is mandatory. You cannot do without it. The fact that these rights are enshrined in our Constitution means that the state is under obligation to respect them. Let us not forget that we have the right holders and we have the duty bearers. You and I are the right holders. It is the state that is the duty bearer. And that is why we hold the state accountable when rights are violated. And that is why in Article 12.1, it makes it very clear that those rights shall be respected and upheld by the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and other organ of government or its agencies. So it means that the police has no excuse to continue to violate the rights of Ghanaians. The military has no excuse to continue to violate the rights of Ghanaians. if you suspect somebody has committed a crime, the person has a right under Article 19 of the Constitution to be subjected to fair trial. That is what it means. That is what it means. Ladies and gentlemen, in Article 12.2, it says that every person in Ghana, every child, every individual in Ghana, regardless of where and your position that you hold, we are all entitled to the fundamental rights that are enshrined in our Constitution. Now, world leaders took a stand. It is my fervent prayer and hope that as we move out of this auditorium, we will all begin to take a stand. It takes one individual. When you go into history, it takes individuals who are willing to dare to be different and to make a difference in the life of others. Are you willing to take a stand today? That is my question to you. Are you willing to take a stand? Look, in the wake of World War II, many things were destroyed. Today, go to Accra. The problem of streetism is just increasing. Children of school-going age, and sometimes you drive past the major traffic lights and you see these children and you wonder what is happening to our beloved nation. And you are wondering, why can't these children be in school? Go to Yeji and see children, hundreds of children who are naked and walking about without any aim. Is anybody thinking and caring about these children? Are you willing to take a stand today? Are you willing to take a stand? In Ghana today, many of us, professionals, such as teachers, police officers, even judges and lawyers, and sometimes even journalists, we are not willing to transform the future of Ghana to make it a right-based Ghana. Sometimes we are all afraid to confront truth. Truth has become so relative in my country. Truth has become so relative. The definition of what is true and what is wrong, or what is true or false, is dependent sometimes on religious opinions, sometimes on political affiliation. Oh, you will see NDC do something which is so bad, and you will see NDC people defend it. And as soon as MPP take over, you see, they will do the same thing after they condemn it in opposition. Where are we going as a country? If we want to charter a new course for Ghana, if we can dream of a new Ghana, a Ghana that is devoid of political victimization and vilification, a Ghana that respects everybody equally, a Ghana that treats everyone equally, I am telling you, not until we are willing to have this dream, we cannot make a change. We cannot bring a difference in this country. Wherever we see violations of human rights, we have to join forces together to demand action. It doesn't matter where it begins. I remember very well, some time past, we heard about Obinim violating, some young girls. I took up that case. There were people who called me and said, Obinim says he is going to turn into snake to bite me in my dreams. So I said, oh, no problem. Let him come. There is only one thing I know, that by the power of God, if Obinim approaches me in that dream, I will crush him. Oh yes. And since that time, I don't know, that is the reason why I don't dream of late. But, when I try to dream and see him, but I don't see him. Ladies and gentlemen, our human rights advocacy, promotion and protection must be devoid of political considerations, because human rights violations knows no political colors. For instance, it took courageous people in Medina and Adenta municipality, through public protests and demonstration, to demand for footbridges and traffic lights after several people lost their lives through tragic accidents, for the government to respond to their needs. Yeah, it is not automatic. You have rights, it is not automatic. Sometimes you must demand it, but you must use lawful means to demand it. People who violate rights of others only do so because they fail to recognize the inherent value of human life and human existence. In Ghana today, we have been so divided by politics. However, I want to challenge us today. Let us be united by our common humanity. We all belong to one race, and that is the human race. It is a beautiful race. Look, you can live in peace with each other. You can respect one another. You can treat one another with dignity. We must promote and protect human rights, regardless of the background of people, their race, their color, ethnic, political and economic status. Now, this is the call to action. One of the tenets of human rights is fairness and equal justice. Justice means fairness and equal treatment. In Ghana, the 1992 Constitution makes it clear in Article 1.1. It says that the sovereignty of Ghana resides in the people of Ghana, in whose name and for whose welfare the powers of government are to be exercised in a manner within the limits laid down in the Constitution. Now, standing for human rights means that demanding that the state and the government provides for the welfare of women and children and demanding for equal treatment before the law without discrimination. Standing for human rights means that Ghanaians will see the love for country and the need to touch and transform lives to be more important than the quest for money, houses, and cars. It means that we as Ghanaians would have to take responsibility of respecting and treating each other with dignity. Standing for human rights means that the reasons why people ascend political positions will not be to amass wealth, but it will be with the sole aim of serving the interests of the people. Standing for human rights means that the street child living on the streets of Malata or on the streets of Makola, and the defied child in maybe Bunkpurugu Yoyo, and the poor and the vulnerable children all over the country will have equal opportunities and privileges. Standing for human rights means that demanding the values of accountability in public office, whether or not it leads to discrimination or victimization. There are many people in public office who sometimes can see violations and they close their eyes over it. Why? They fear that they may be victimized. We need to be willing to demand for our rights at all legitimate cost, even to the peril of our lives. Africa is a great continent, and Ghana is a great country. And that is all we have. I remember when we were kids, Ghana, my happy home, land of rich resources, land of mighty talent, gracious tolerance, justice and freedom. I will die for you, Mother Ghana. Oh, I thought I have some. We were the JSS and then the. Ghana is a beautiful place. Let us make it safe for all of us. We need to make Ghana very, very safe for all of us. And let's be bold to speak the truth. We need, for example, to applaud government for introducing that giant step, because it is not easy to introduce free SHS. We need to applaud the government. But we must be bold to tell government in the face that the lack of requisite infrastructure to support the free SHS invariably violates the rights of the children who are affected, the affected children. There are many places that do not have problems, but where there is a problem to the extent that somebody who is supposed to learn will have to sit on the floor, then there is a problem, because you cannot guarantee the future and the quality of education that child is receiving. And we need to be able to tell government that government do something about this. To the extent that you don't do anything about it, we can assure you that you are violating the rights of these children. Ladies and gentlemen, beyond this, Ghana has serious problems of inequality, discrimination against women, police brutality, justice and fairness, and we have serious issues of political corruption, naked abuse of power, weak institutions, child trafficking, as we've heard, child labor, child prostitution, among many others. But just before I bring this to an end, let me share this quick story with you. On April 4, 2016, a 16-year-old boy called Christopher Bama was abused by 3 military officers in the north. He was subjected to what can be described as torturous, cruel, and dehumanizing treatment. It was alleged that the victim had stolen a mobile phone, and after thorough search, the phone was not found on him. Yet military men insisted that he stole the phone, and they started assaulting him. Eyewitnesses testified that the victim was handcuffed and was hanged on a mango tree, and they kept hitting him with their rifles until the victim became unconscious. When he became unconscious, they decided to melt rubber onto his skin in an attempt to revive him. That is the extent of wickedness that we have in this country. If it is not close to you, you will never know. But that is the extent. So what happened? I led that case and I petitioned Shraj. This is the 3rd year. Shraj has not been able to come up with a verdict on that matter. In which country are we? So when we scream rights, we should be able to tell our institutions that you must rise up to the occasion, so that when a right is violated and we run to you, you will be able to promote that right. Look at the case of Eric Asante. He was a teacher, alleged to have defiled a 12-year-old child, jailed for 15 years in hard labor. He says he didn't do it. Appeal, appeal, appeal. And I remember when I was at the Supreme Court and we needed to do a DNA to confirm whether or not Eric was responsible. Because at the time that they jailed him, the young girl had a child and they could have done a DNA to prove, because that was the only evidence available. They didn't do it. When it came to light that Eric was not responsible, the Supreme Court acquitted and discharged Eric. But look at what happened. Eric was discharged at the time that he has already served all the 15 years in prison. According to the UN Special Rapporteur Report on Ghanaian prisons, 2013, the state of Ghana's prison is a violation of all Ghanaians who are there. So if you go to prison, that is the end of your life. So make sure you are not in trouble. Now what happened? When we went to seek for compensation for Eric, what was Eric given? Something less than 50,000 Ghana cedis. Eric was an Greek science teacher. Before he went to jail, he had written books on Greek science. Where lies the strength in our institutions to defend us when these rights are violated? 2 years ago, there was a young girl, Blazilia, 12 years. She was defiled by a police officer. With all due apologies to all the police officers in the house. By a police officer. And it became a problem. As I talk to you now, that young man was never prosecuted. That young man was never prosecuted. As for Patrick Reynolds, we all heard about Patrick Reynolds. And you all remember Charles Entry. It was alleged that Charles Entry is going to kill John Mahama, former President John Mahama. And the headlines were there: breaking news, attempted assassination of the president aborted. My friends in the media, I know they like the negative stories. Like today we were discussing, that's the headline, attempted assassination. But this is a bipolar disorder patient. And the entire nation went quiet. There was quiet time in the space. Everybody was afraid. If you're an MPP and you take up the case, they say, MPP for no person who could mama no, who say omu defending no. If you are an NDC and you go, so they want to kill your president, you too, you are following. So can't we have a consensus on what is right and what is wrong? I remember I picked up that case. We chased after the state. Charles Entry was given 10 years imprisonment when his mental state was that of a bipolar. We got that sentence quashed, and Charles Entry was sent to the psychiatric home where he underwent treatment. As I talk to you now, Charles Entry has reunited with his family. Ladies and gentlemen, this does not just happen. About 2 months ago, in my office, there were 44 young children who were so feeble and they had HIV/AIDS. Children, yes. They had HIV/AIDS. And apart from the antiretroviral drugs that they are given, how they eat, nobody cares about it. And these children, as I'm talking to you now, most of them lost their parents through the HIV/AIDS disease. And they are walking about, and we can't do anything for them. And this is a country that is bold enough to say that we want to even build a national cathedral. It is good. But wherein lies our protection of these vulnerables? Because, you know, the height of our development can only... We need to rise up. And as I take my seat, I came here for peace. Don't exchange my words for war. I just want us to stand for our human rights. And that is all I want Ghanaians to know. I think in the Volta region, I heard somebody was going to do some juju to change the mind of the president. And the police went and arrested the person. And then the police, regional commander, you had the guts, call media men, fellow media men, people want to change the mind of the president on the creation of new districts. I have arrested them. I am sending message to all fetish priests. If anybody comes to you to change the mind of the president, get them arrested. Please. What kind of nation are we in? Are we now going to be chasing after witchcraft and everybody around? I mean, the law is so clear. Article 19 is so clear that a person cannot be charged with an offense which is not clearly defined and penalties prescribed for them. So, I mean, you can't go about chasing witchcraft. So, police, we beg, please release the people, we beg. On this special day, we are begging you, let those who want to exercise their religious rights, let them exercise it. I know the president has a lot of prayer warriors who have been praying for him. He will be fine. And as I take my seat, I leave you with this statement. Freedom is not voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. By Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you very much and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Women or parents send their own children for child trafficking. Yes. Some sell them for money, for history of death, and so many other things. So what happens to these parents when they sell out the children? Is there anything in place that if you send your own child, the government will give you some punishment or what happens? And after the treatment of those children, do you send them back to those same parents who sold them, or what do you do to the children? Thank you.
Most of the times, we have a lot of challenges in terms of the children that when we rescue them, sending them back to that same home that trafficked them, it's a challenge.
So we decided to do some piloting with some NGO in Karachi. Formerly, when we get them, we house them. We even have a home in WINNEBA here. We house them for 3 months, and then at the end, we send them back. You go back to that same house to look for the children, and you cannot find them. They have been re-trafficked. So we did a pilot study where we were able to work with some NGO, and I remember we even took some of them to the home where our lawyer was also raised up. And today, those children that we send them to that place, about 15 of them are now in SS, and this year we have about 20 writing the JSS, and they have also joined the 15. So it is something that we hope more of them will enter the universities and become like a lawyer, because some of them want to be doctors, others want to be lawyers, nurses, and all those things. So it is something that we are doing. But if you are a parent, and when you commit that offense, no mercy for the cripple. We send you to court, we jail you. And now we have even increased the punishment. Formerly, it is 5 years. Now it's up to 20 years.
As a basis to say that because maybe I am of this religion, I don't allow, you can't do that. So I'm sure that is very clear. Yeah, so just read it again. You will realize that it says that a person who by reason of sickness or any other cause is unable to give his consent shall not be deprived by any other person of medical treatment, education, or any other social or economic benefit by reason only of religion. You understand? So you can't do that. Yeah. So there could be other reasons, but you can't use religion as a basis of denying the person. So that is what it means. So I mean, we've been to court several times to compel people to give blood when they have to do that. Yeah, the second question about shraj, if our work is underway. Now, when it happens like that, there are a number of things that you can do, which we are considering and working on. For example, when a public officer fails to work, you actually can go to court to seek for an order of mandamus, or an order to compel the person to do their job. And so it is in the process. It's one of the things that we are considering. Now, quite apart from that, Ghana has signed some international protocols that allows us to go to the ECOWAS Community Court of Justice that has a concurrent jurisdiction with the Court of Ghana, so that in cases like that, you actually can challenge the entire state, even at the ECOWAS court, or all the way to the African court, except that for the African court, you need to exhaust local remedy. Thank you.
Thank you.
In fact, at the basic schools and secondary schools as well, second cycle institutions, we have guidance and counseling coordinators, and they are there to support the students in their difficulties. Unfortunately, at the basic schools, we don't have offices for them, and we are trying so hard to get spaces for them, because there are issues that the individual students will have to sit one-on-one with the counselors. But for the second cycle institutions, they have offices. So these students, they go to their counselors when the need arises. And I know that the students, they know their rights. Not long ago, I'm sure many of you heard it, that a pupil, class 3 pupil in the Ashanti region, the teacher came and she reported the case at the police station, and the teacher was arrested, and the teacher wept throughout the whole day. I don't know how far it has gone. I'm not saying that you should report your teachers at the police station, but at least right now everybody knows his or her rights. The students are aware that they are not to be caned, so they know their rights, and we are trying hard to get spaces for the counselors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you have lots and lots of questions, but please, I want you to do something to help yourself. Just go on Facebook. I know
the highest highlights in my life as a staff of this great university. This event is one of the best that I can record. Yes. this 70th anniversary of the International Human Rights Day. So I'd like to thank my management team and thank the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences Education and the head and staff of the Center for Conflict and Human Rights and Peace Studies for an excellent job. Let's applaud them, really. The planning, when you sit through it, especially for those of us who have been here from the very beginning, will know that without any doubt, this has been very, very well thought out and very, very well planned, and I really commend them. I want to assure this center that whatever further support they need from management, I pledge that we will do our best to support you. In fact, I don't want to say we will do our best. We will continue to do our best to support you, because Mr. Golo will tell you, and the Dean will tell you, that this is one of the centers that is very, very close to my heart. I was part of the very creation of it, and Golo will tell you, Dr. Golo will tell you, that I have been on him about many, many things that we can do. There was a point when he was trying to avoid me, because anytime I saw him, I would ask him questions about what it is we want to do. And I would challenge him and say, look at what they are doing in Kimpa, look at what they are doing at Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Center. So I'm really impressed with, especially with the kinds of people that these people have thought about and brought. You know, my colleague from UCC, Doc, let's have a conversation after this. The Municipal Director of Education, Lawyer Susu, whom I've seen on TV several times, I'm glad that, and he happens to be my student, so he should be careful that he behaves when he's here. Francis Xavier, you are probably a Catholic too, so Francis Xavier is not a common name. I'm very thankful to you for the passion with which you deliver and the passion with which you speak. You are not speaking from a book, you are speaking from your own personal experience. And when a person speaks from experience, it's amazing, it's beautiful to watch. You are carried into it. The only little comment I would like to make, out of passion, Lawyer Susu said something about, in a situation where the Free Senior High School seems, I can't quote directly, seems to have failed in terms of children not having certain practical things. That is where I like to comment on my young brothers, my students' comment. I want to comment on that by saying that from where I sit, as Vice Chancellor of the leading teacher education university, with my constant interaction with those in charge of the Free Senior High School, with the Director General of GES being a member of my council, whom I talk to on a regular basis, with the fact that I was a Pro-Vice Chancellor for 4 years and traveling around the country and knowing a lot and coming from a village myself, I can tell you that this government not only has done a lot, but did a lot of planning and preparing. But one thing that I can say is that I don't think anybody really anticipated the numbers that were going to patronize this. And so there is some challenge. But I think we must say on record that there has never been and there will never be any deliberate neglect which will enable us to say that there is child abuse. So that one I'd like to be recorded as having corrected or having commented on. But I think that from all that we have heard, going out, like my younger brother asked, what are we going to do? Is it going to be business as usual? I hope and pray that after having listened to all of this and having been carried along, the passion and the beautiful things, and my young lady friend from the researcher from Shrag, let's have a conversation. In the past, I used to say things publicly, but these days I'm being measured. So let's talk. Otherwise, in the past, I would have said, can I poach you to becoming a lecturer in the university? Because I'm really, you are what? You are in the University of Ghana. So what stops me from poaching you? That is just to say that I'm very impressed with the passion with which you speak about these matters. So, yes, it is true that human rights are fundamental. They are not favors or privileges that we give to anybody. they ought to be available to every human being. And so I hope that we have come here to reflect on and to ensure that we understand what human rights are about. I'm hoping that every one of us in our own small ways will do whatever it takes to ensure that there are conditions which give rise to human rights. And I am very proud to publicly say that this university is at the forefront in ensuring that human rights and the agenda for human rights are being carried out. Otherwise, we wouldn't, yes, we are. We are at the forefront of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be so passionate about patronizing this and deciding that we would like to host it with all the support that we give. And the fact that we have a Center for Conflict and Human Rights and Peace Studies, that also showing that we really are committed to what human rights stand for. Lots of people live in bondage without even knowing it. Isn't that sad? When you hear that people are in bondage and they don't even know it. And so we have to continue to alert ourselves and advise ourselves. And the young people in this center, let me say, do we have to wait till December 10th before we do something like this? Let's do it, in other words, let's do it more often. Factor something in your budget, and if management needs to support you financially to ensure that this is done more frequently so that people can be supported in fighting for their rights and fighting in the proper way, we will be there to support you. My colleague from UCC spoke to us about so many examples of human rights abuses in our nation. It's not something that we want to be proud of. And going forward, I am sure that as a nation, we will do better than we have done in the past. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us stand up for our rights. But first of all, how can you stand up for your rights when you don't know what your rights are? To respond to my young brother, wondering whether there are avenues like that, thank you, Municipal Director of Education, for reminding us that we do have guidance and counseling coordinators in the elementary schools. And in the university, this is one of the few universities that has turned out the largest thousands of guidance and counseling coordinators in the country. Yes, I remember attending a function, their national conference, some maybe 12, 15 years ago, and I am not exaggerating. This took place at Nat Hall in Accra. It was like a homecoming. I felt like a village chief being lifted up because almost everybody there was a past student of this university, the Guidance and Counseling Association of Ghana. It was so beautiful. So I'm saying to you that we as a University of Education, WINNEBA, have trained a lot of people and continue to train a lot of people who will guide our children, who will continue to guide our children, to guide them regarding what their rights are. At the university, every student in this university has a guidance, a counseling, academic counselor. Every student has an academic counselor. And the academic counselors have been so trained as to do what is so critical, referral. Make sure that every situation that is brought to your attention, if it's beyond you, it goes beyond the academic concerns, there are referrals. As university chaplain and as chaplain for 20 years in this university, I've had hundreds, if not thousands, of cases referred to me from academic counselors. And trust me, if a matter of abuse comes to me, everybody knows Afro-Brony, I'm not going to put it under the carpet. I will direct you to the proper place. If it includes taking you or reporting the matter or encouraging you to report the matter to the police. We have been doing that for all these years. So just in case you didn't know, there are academic counselors in the university, there is a university chaplain, there is a dean of students, and in my management, we are even expanding. We are in the process of expanding the office of the dean of students. We are going to have an additional vice dean. So very soon, hopefully, maybe by next semester, there will be 3 deans of students in this university. Now, what is the purpose? The purpose is that we have become aware that there are a lot more people are coming, and they are not like when we started teaching here. Most of the people who come here are very young, 17-year-old, very, very tiny little people who probably don't even know how to handle themselves. And so management has seen the need to expand the services that these students need. That tells you that we respect their human rights and we want to do the best we can to support them. So going forward, yes, I agree with my young lady student who says human rights are women's rights. No doubt about it. If we could empower our women, we would have finished the work. And as a Catholic priest, we do that a lot in the church. I spend a lot of my time with the women, Catholic Women Association. It's from the same thing that she is talking about. So those in the Center for Conflict and Human Rights and Peace Studies, let us do some more by supporting our women more, because if you guide them more, let's give them extra doses of what the rights are about, of how to empower themselves and their children, and including even their husbands. If we empower our women, then we have taken care of the problem. If we empower our women properly and educate them about their rights, they will be the ones who are spearheading what it takes to teach these men who are usually drunkards and careless and not serious. And so I charge you once again, spend some more time and energy empowering our women, so that, because women's rights are human rights, and I also share in the view that the youth's rights are human rights, because if we don't take care, a very respectable friend of mine told me some 5 years ago that these young people that are walking up and down with their autofisters, if we are not careful, one day they are going to team up and come and kill us and drive us away from our nice vehicles and offices. We need to take good care of our young people. And young people, let me assure you that this university and the human rights outfit is determined to do whatever it takes to support you and to guide you. Thank you very much once again.
Nyame wo kanchre Ghana for and se wo hwe nipa fa hodie ho nsem na bakosem a ansa na yenya sa universal declaration ni kra no na enam senia ana se akon ahodo a esisiye enam ni Hitler any the beliefs entina due to the Second World War no nipa bebre ehwiri wo nkwa na bebre na bebia wo moda ne bebia wo modidie nsem bebre na eluzu o very essence of human life. Na se wo hwa bakosem a almost about 60 to 80 million people, and as a nipa dodo nkwa be 60 and 80 million, and our hwiri wo nkwa due to war, Second World War no. And now menunti no ama men nyina eba together e ka say never again, and I say say ECBM say individual bia betimi afa efeni say e de ato ne ho so na wetietia nkae no efa ho de so emra ye mark sa 70th anniversary esese ye kai nienti a Universal Declaration on Human Rights ne kra baaye. It is because of abuses. It's as na yeti nipa bi fa hundie so ntina sa declaration e baaye. Na enamenu so ama yen Ghana fon so no yetimi afa ababi ewom. Sebio yesi se obi di nsa eka wabodwe na wankasa ho a odi nsa ne bewo wani. Na eba ni human right it's all about say live and let's live. And I say yedi obuo mapa edibema yeho na yenyina yatena si ewa asomdwe kwan so na sakoba ne se obebetietia ne nyonko fa hodie so dia eno de enkoyi na obehwe no ema na me kasa na me kasa edifa nansen ohwe asewa so sei nipa dodo be 7 na yekokun wom police for ku wom no na omo se omo dwen se omo ye armed robbers sabi so omo ye armed robbers mpo a is it the right say na ka obekun wom na okun wom wi a how can you ascertain say no crest omo robbers and I say omo nye robbers ntinaka if you respect the right to life naka won shoot omo in a way a obekun wom now report about out say sa ni pay ayekun wom nyina no omo nye robbers. So how do we reverse the trend that ni pay back? It's not possible. We are no to nchanya niema ahodron ketinketi bebre e wo man mu e na amounted to violation and I say yetiatia nipa fa ahondie so enti yes saa dey e dey body rule say esese ye nyina ye hwe say ye ntina ho ne enye hwe han e ma ye ntietie nipa fa ahondie so o man mu enti Ghana fom me nyina ye nya anokro in fact ye ma ye ani enye ani na debi so enye debi say bibi ye nokre a enye nokre ma ye say enye nokre so a enye nokre emie enye say nokredie no e dependent on ebia political colors ebia we NDC na MPP ene be determine nia eye nokra na se nia enye nokra ye ne saade a ene o man no ye ntimi nko ye nim
se Ghana ye yensa hye rights ho
se wo hwe papers ahodro na se international laws ayede yensa hye ase a nokra nyame nim edoso bebre na metimi aka se saa papers ahodro ya ya sign no affect yen ama ya tutu ye nioma bebre e wo kwan bebre so for example say wo hwe spousal right bill wo hwe children's act ayewo say wo hwe disability act ayewo na wo hwe domestic violence act sa ne nyina no e response to sa international laws ya sign no ene me di sa ne ma ne gu akwan mu but ye problem kesi na say o how kesi ayewo Ghana ha no any enforcement of the law. In fact, about the human rights in self, say, "Yen na nim nia eye nokre ni nia enye nokre, ye nim nia papa ni nia enye papa." But say, ye bedi nokre na ye di aye adwuma pa de, eno de eto de bia na touch makakra. Nti me gidi say enforcement no, ena ya de ahia yen kese pa. You. Well, when we talk about human rights, we are talking about respect for the fundamental values of all persons. And inherent in the values of human rights is the right to education. The government has done so well by promoting the free SHS, which is good. It's a good policy because it creates access. It gives everybody opportunity, to go to school, whether or not you have money. But to the extent that the implementation stage of the free SHS that we are now lacks requisite facilities to support the program, I think that the entire project violates the right to education of these children. And why do I say so? It violates the right to education of these children because, look, studying is one-time life opportunity. These children who are living in very deplorable states, some living in classrooms without adequate facility, some living in congestion, in dormitories, they will never have a second chance. Some of them are only heading towards a rewrite. That will not guarantee, a future for them. And Ghanaians, let's be truthful. Let's be truthful. The current state of the free SHS violates the rights of those children. Government need to rise up to the occasion. It's okay. We applaud government that it has introduced the free SHS. Government should take steps. In fact, in 2019, I know they read the budget. I am just imploring the government that we make adequate provision to support the free SHS. Otherwise, the current state of the free SHS violates the right to education of these children. Now, quite apart from that, when you look at this country, we have problem with our institutions properly enforcing the laws and properly enforcing standards of human rights. Look at the Asawasi case that happened, for example. That's a clear case of how police can misfire, leading to the violation of the right of innocent citizens who were killed in cold blood. When you take that aside, look at what is happening in the Volta region. A police commander arresting people on allegation of some religious manifestation or manifestation of a religious right. Look, in law, we say that, you see, witchcraft, religion, rituals, they are only fanciful possibilities. They are not reasonably probable. And to the extent that they are not reasonably probable and they don't have probative value in court, you don't need to go around chasing after these people. You are only violating their right to religion. When you take that aside, look at Shraj. Shraj is a very good partner to us in the work we do. I have a number of petitions before Shraj, but I always would say, without a shadow of doubt, that Shraj did not perform its duty well when it comes to Christopher Bama, the 16-year-old boy who was violated by the 3 military men. This was a major case across this nation. And I always say, when there are political issues, look at Ken Bond. Shraj, in less than 3 months, gave us a result. Look at Ford Mahama. In less than how many months, they gave us results. When it comes to violation of human beings in Ghana, when people's rights have been trampled upon, are they as quick? Are they as responsive as when it comes to those other things? And I think Shraj needs to work very hard. I will use this occasion to call on Shraj as a matter of urgency to release that report on Christopher Bama so that we will know what kind of remedies that could be available to that boy. And I also bemoan the case of Eric Asante. And I bemoan it because I'm a citizen and I'm an active citizen and I have a right to speak out. When you have violated a citizen of this country by way of putting him in prison for an offense he did not commit, and he's serving the entire 15 years jail term, and all the nation could offer him in compensation is just something less than 50,000. Honestly, I don't know where we are going as a nation. I think we need to speak against it. We need to speak against this. Absolutely. Absolutely. The lack of, because everybody has a right to information. And to the extent that you have a right to information, any mechanism that needs to be put in place by the state to make it easily, to give Ghanaians the opportunity to easily access information, is what must be the case. For a state that really wants to promote rights of its citizens, you put in the mechanisms for the citizens to access those rights. The citizens are the right holders. The state is a duty bearer. Now the state in this case is now exemplified, or the position of the state is what Parliament has taken now. And to the extent that Parliament has consistently failed to pass the Right to Information Bill, Parliament in itself is violating the rights of Ghanaians. And that must be told Parliament. And I don't know how long it will take for Parliament to be able to pass that Right to Information Bill. Why is it that we will put in policies to collect tax? For example, look at TIN. We said everybody must have tax identification number. Why? Because we want to be able to collect tax. To the extent that we have actually said that even the free XHS, before you can have access, you should be able to register so you can pay tax. And yet, Ghanaians do not have an automatic right to access information as to how much tax has been collected, what their tax money has been used for, and so on and so forth. Please, there is a disconnect there. And I think we need to do something about this. And today being the International Human Rights Day, I believe that this country needs to wake up to its responsibility to human rights. Thank you.
Anytime I talk about this, I feel like crying because I was a woman, I felt I didn't belong. I felt I wasn't part of it. When I contested the then president, Mr. Kwesi Nyantakyi, in 2015, I was trampled upon. I was humiliated. I was violated. I was disrespected. It got to a time I felt I wasn't human. I was asking my family, my colleagues that, do I really belong to this world or I'm from a different world? To the extent that they paid radio stations, media, TV stations, people like you, to sit behind the cameras and insult me, use harsh words that I cannot even mention. They paid people to follow. I had to even move out of my own house. And I asked myself, where is human rights? Because these are people I looked up to. These are people I thought understood and knew human rights. Most of them were people I was looking up to that, maybe in future I become like A or B. And these people molested me. These people treated me badly. And I'm like, I don't know. Was it because I was a woman? So I'm just pleading on anybody, everybody, please let us come together and promote women and girls. Let's support our own because women matter. As Kweji Agri said, if you educate one man, you educate one person. But if you educate a woman, you educate the whole nation. And all Bible-believing persons can testify to this, that behind every successful man, there's a woman. We are your mothers, your wives, your daughters. We give birth to you. So please respect women and promote us. Thank you. It was in 2015. My name is Ofebia Ramat Abdullah, and I'm the CEO of Rama Visions.
Yeah, thank you very much. For some time now, you see our mass media and electronic media is all full of the words or the phrase human rights. But the issue is how many people understand the phrase human right or the term. That is the issue. And one thing about human rights is that until you understand it, you cannot demand it. But we also know the fact that human rights go with a responsibility. You know, as the normal say that where your right ends, that is where someone's responsibility starts. So that is why when I actually returned from Europe, I decided to establish a center called the Center for Conflict, Human Rights, Peace Studies, where we look at the interface of human rights, conflict, and peace. So our main issue is that, you know, when you talk about human rights, we're talking about both vertical and horizontal relationship, and they're all about what? Peace and development. Yeah, this is our focus. So far, we've trained a high number of people. I can mention with all this that some police officers, I mean, I don't want to mention here because it's like I'm advertising. There are top police officers who pass through the program, and they are doing very well in the area of human rights. And at the moment, we are also trying to collaborate with the Ghana Police Service. So sooner or later, we will send the IG will come and sign an MOU with the center where we try to train the police personnel on human rights issues. You know, the order of the cardinal call is that the police should stop abusing human rights. One thing, let me tell you one thing, is that it's only the state and its apparatus that violate human rights, but the individual abuse human rights. Now, so we're trying to educate the police in a way of any time they are doing they are performing their duties, they should try and respect the rights of the citizens. That is the only way that we can bring peace. You know, these days everybody is condemning the police, but the question is that, can we do without the police? No, we cannot do without the police. And they're also human beings. You know, I'm developing a concept people now called who protect the protector. You know, they also have their challenges. They are our fathers, they are our parents, they are our brothers, and they are husbands and others. But these days, you know what is happening to the police? They are being subjected to a lot of torture and lynching and all this. So what we want to bring that cordial relationship between the civilian population and the police in terms of crime management and peace building. So that's exactly the focus of the center. We want them to understand the rudiments of policing from the human rights perspective and then democratic policing. And apart from that, we also want to, you know, the other time, if you listen to our president in his inaugural speech, say we should try to be citizens, but not participants. Being a citizen, that you should understand your responsibilities. But I know what I've realized that a lot of the state and interpret, they are shying away from human rights education. The fear is that maybe if people know their right, they'll keep on claiming, demanding it, and that will create confusion. But the fact is that if our citizens understand human rights, then they will also become a responsible one. For instance, what do we see these days? Students always going to demonstration, damaging public properties. But one of the main duties of a citizen is to protect public property. And they can only learn this from a human rights education. And then what about teachers? Now with this, free education, we see a lot of children are going to school. But the question is, how many of our teachers or tutors understand or even know human rights, let alone child rights? That is exactly what the center is trying to do. Yeah, we want to champion human rights education in the country, and also make everybody a human rights educator. Because we are training the trainees. We train them, they also go out there, and then we train the children. Yeah. I'm a lecturer. My name is Dr. Harrison Kwame Golo. I'm a lecturer at the Center for Conflict, Human Rights and Peace Studies. Yeah. At University of Education, WINNEBA. You're welcome.
When it comes to human rights issue, as a nation, we are not doing everything right, especially protecting women and children. They are the most vulnerable in society, and they are the ones that society must pay rapt attention to. We talk about street children. Do you see, how many men do you see hawking on the streets? Most of the hawkers are women. Most of them are children. We are looking at children between the ages of 5 and 17. When you get to the fishing industry, I am a fishery scientist, and I'm more concerned about the fishing industry because we even have children laboring in our fishing industry. We are looking at children from 5 to 17 years. For Christ's sake, 5 years is a toddler. So So we are looking at children from the ages of the toddling stages to 17 years. Mind you, a 17-year-old child in the city would have completed SHS or in SS2 or maximum SS3. But we are looking at the remote areas, such as the village part of the Volta Lake, where a 17-year-old could even be in class 4. So we are looking, so in effect, they are all children, and they are all in the fishing industry. Either their own parents have recruited them into the fishing industry because they'll tell you that it's a family, occupation. My grandfather left off to me, my father left off to me, and for that matter, it is my turn to also hand over to my children. So they have also been recruited into it. There is no problem with children helping their parents in their businesses or in family ventures. But where the children are denied of education, of health benefits, then their rights are being infringed upon. I come from a family background where we had family businesses. I was helping in the family businesses, but my education was assured. That is why I'm here today, even as a PhD holder. Assuming I didn't go to school, would I be a PhD holder even in the investing and also imparting knowledge? I'm very passionate about this because the children are our future. As Kweju Agri said, when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. If all the women are deprived of education, of good health, of all the rights and the benefits they need as humans, what is happening to our nation? And bear in mind, most children spend more time with their mothers than with their fathers. So once the woman is enlightened or the mother is enlightened, she has the requisite education, she has good health, then she'll be able to take good care of the children and also impart similar knowledge to the children. I'm Dr. Angela Lamte. I'm an academic with the Department of Marine and Fishery Sciences, University of Ghana.
Please, let's pose for the group picture.